Hans Troyer, young and fit, bro. Welcome to the Freetrail podcast. I'm so glad we're doing this.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be on, really. I'm a huge fan of the pod, so this is sweet.
Dude, I am now a passionate member of the Hans Troyer fan club, of which I think there's thousands of us globally now. It seems that you have a lot of people in your corner, and I'm glad to be one of them now after meeting you for the first time last weekend. And I'm very excited to get to know you a little bit better in this conversation. I start all these podcasts in the same place. As you know, that opening question is just what makes you introduce yourself to the Freetrail audience a little bit.
Absolutely. It's such a good question. I would describe myself as a people person. I like to smile. I like to talk to people, and I tend to see the best in people. Besides that, I'm super competitive, sometimes too competitive, which is, it's gotten me into trouble before, but I enjoy the competition, the thrill of the competition. And, that's me in short.
Awesome. Well, you're obviously a great competitor, and we're going to talk all about the places where I've gotten a chance to witness you compete both digitally and in person. But I think we should do a bit of context setting just for people who are getting to know you a little bit. Obviously, you're a newer name on the circuit. And so we'll do some background, but I wanted to start with your tagline. These are the times. You have a few taglines, right? Young and fit. These are the times. Let's get it. But maybe start with these are the times. I mean, I think most of the audience will have an assumption about what you mean by that, but where did that come from? Is there a good story there?
Yeah. So most of my sayings came from college running. But on my college team, I took my fifth year. So I was the oldest in the team for 2 years in a row. And, I loved running in college. It was so much fun. Cross country is the coolest thing in the world. Being on a team and competing at that level, it's amazing. So I always wanted to, tell the younger generation, cause I could see that I was, graduating soon and it was going to end soon. So I knew that I was in the times. So I'd always be look, these are the times, guys. And I'd always tell the younger generation, guys, soak it up because it goes by quick, but just remember that these are the times. And I always finish that with whatever times you're currently in, it's these are the times. So post college, and I started trail running, I was all right, well now I'm living in the times, and so it kind of works well because now I feel like I'm always living in the times.
It's such a good reminder. Right now as we're recording, the NCAA college sort of conference championships are going on before the national tournament begins. And I've been thinking that sort of similar thing through the last week or so as these tournaments have been going on is remembering back to my collegiate days playing lacrosse and just how much you don't appreciate the beauty and simplicity of those years until they're fleeting memories. And so, but at the same time, I think we can bring that attitude to every chapter and period of our lives. And, these are the times. It's a good, I think, disposition to carry throughout the day. Where does the young and fit tagline come from? That's also a college thing?
Yeah, so that one did come out in college, but it was just a little funnier one where since I was older on the team, I was one of the leaders of the team. So I felt like I was responsible for team morale a lot of the time, just keeping everybody excited for practice. And so I remember it comes from a movie. The movie's called 17 Again. With Zac Efron and Matthew Perry. Yeah. But the plot of the movie is Matthew Perry gets to be 17 again and, come from his 40s or something. And so when he's at basketball practice, he's running around making layups and stuff. And he starts being oh my goodness, I feel so young and so fit. This is amazing. And I thought it was just funny. And so I showed up to practice one day. And I was come on, guys, we're all so young and we're so fit. These are the times. Let's just have some fun. And before you know it, it just turned into young and fit. And that's all I said. And then now the joke is well, this is the youngest I'm going to be for now. Yeah. So I'm young and fit. And everybody's young and fit. They get the opportunity to be.
Yeah. I hope you're still putting up YouTube videos like that with that same attitude when you're 35, 40 years old. And,
I hope so too.
Yeah. All right, cool. So tell me everything there is to know about Cartersville, Georgia, which is, I'm assuming where you're from. I've just sort of done a deep dive into your Strava and stuff. And, I have a bit of a fascination about where people are from and how it shapes them. So tell me everything there is to know about Cartersville.
For sure. So I actually just moved to Cartersville like 6 weeks ago. I'm from Noonan, Georgia, which is about an hour and a half from Cartersville, both of which don't have a lot going on. Both small towns, they're growing rapidly, as is every town, is what it feels like. But
Yeah.
Cartersville's cool. We moved there. My wife works out of Atlanta, so she commutes. So then for me, it's a much like shorter commute to find some trails and some mountains, as Francesco would say.
Yeah.
Because he was kind of making fun of me a little bit in a nice way after the race for my mountain running, because I just run up and down the same hills over here in Georgia. But yeah, it's just a small town, few trails, nice people, some good disc golf, and that's about the extent of it.
Does it ever feel, I mean, eventually I want to come around and talk about your training and stuff, but obviously the major hotbeds of the professional athletes who you're going to be competing against now as you just begin your career, you know, you've got a dozen years ahead of you at least where you're going to be, you know, sort of going toe to toe with the best in the world. And obviously places like Flagstaff and Boulder and, you know, Salt Lake City, California, up and down the coast, Oregon, Washington are sort of like hotbeds of talent. And you, Hans Troyer, come from Cartersville, Georgia. Do you ever feel like a little self-conscious about that? Or is there a piece of your home that you think contributes to the athlete you are?
I've definitely become a very hard worker being out here. You know, I don't get the benefits of living altitude or training in the mountains every day. So I have to put in the work, and that's sculpted me since I was in like high school with running. Is just like, I don't miss runs, you know, if I can do it, I'll do it. And I think that being out here, like sometimes I feel like I'm at a disadvantage. So I make sure to do all the little things, you know, my core work, my lifts, my diet could get better. but my
it's that Tony's Pizza, right?
Oh yes, I love Tony's Pizza. I probably eat like 5 a week. I can't get enough of them. They're so good.
They got to sponsor you, bro.
That'd be so sweet.
It's so funny, you know. You just said I don't miss runs. I was actually just watching old Unbreakable, sort of like behind the scenes or things that didn't make the final edit of the film. And there's an interview of Anton Krupicka sitting on his front porch in Boulder, Colorado, where he says the same thing. Right. You know, I think JB's question was maybe along the same lines, or, you know, just kind of exploring what makes Anton a special athlete. And I think he was sort of downplaying his talent, and more saying, well, I just don't miss runs. Share a little bit about the consistency, the discipline, the value it brings to your running, and maybe more importantly, where it comes from. Where did it start in your life?
It started, I mean, I'd say that the consistency really started in college, where it's like, I don't consider myself like a gifted athlete or runner. Like, I think that I've had to work for what I've come from. So in college, I quickly, you know, first race in college, you just get smacked across the face with talent by people around you. So I decided that if I wanted to be good, which I did, I would have to, like I said, competitive, very competitive, that I would just have to put in all the work. And I had good coaches and good teammates. So I just started working hard, sometimes too hard. And just, like I said, trying to do all the little things. And I just don't take for granted, like, what's around me. Especially at the races now. It's like, they're so cool. And I think that's a benefit going into these races. Like, I've never seen views like that. So like in Canyons last weekend, whenever I like started to feel bad or something, I could just like look to the left and be like, oh my word, this is incredible. Like, I've never seen something like this in my life. And I just get more energy from that. So I think that knowing that the hard work has been working for me, and it's just like, and I love working hard. I love running. Like, I find so much value in it. And so, like, my first ever ultra marathon was a 50 miler in my parents' backyard. It was a 0.8 mile loop, and I just ran it like 65 times in the heat of summer, just because I was like, this is gonna be fun. And I found so much value in working that hard. And, I think through doing so many loops around small loops here in Noonan and Cartersville, it's like I've developed like a deep appreciation for running. And so regardless of where I am, like, I just like to run. So, yeah.
Yeah. I ran with you for like 10 or 15 minutes on Cal Street, just along the banks of the beautiful American River. And you made a similar comment there, like, we don't get these views in Georgia, man. I was like, welcome to the Western States Trail, buddy. And you're going to get to experience it again here in a couple of months. So you burst onto the scene at the Bandera 100K last year, January of 2024. But before we get there, maybe just summarize your history with running. What led you to begin focusing on trail? You said you competed collegiately, but maybe just sketch the arc of your history with running and what led you to that start line at Bandera.
Yeah. So, competed collegiately, typical story of just liking the long run more than anything else. Looked forward to the long run every week, and always asked my coach if I could run more. And then post college, I finished my track season with just like a little bit of like injury and stuff. So I actually decided to try to live life without running for a little bit, which was not very fun, not as much fun as I thought it would be. I was running like, maybe 10 miles a week just for funsies. And then I decided that 50 miler, that was just like 2 days in advance, just decided to wake up and do it. And I did it. And like, it didn't go that terribly. Like it was so hard. But it was so fun. And so from that, I was like, okay, I'm ready to start training again. Because I think it was like 7 hours and 45 minutes or something for the 50 miler. And I was like, that's not too bad. Like, I wonder what I could do if I started training. So it instantly just became like, what am I capable of in this sport? And it was all like intrinsic motivation. Like I still don't know a lot about trail running. I'm learning so much like every single week. It's incredible. Like I don't know so many races and people in the sport, and people just make fun of me for that, but I'm learning a lot. So a bunch
it's fun,
of intrinsic,
man. It's so
much fun. Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's been like the coolest year ever learning about this, but yeah, so I started just training with no like big goals other than just seeing how fast I could get. I signed up for a race in Noonan, Georgia, and that was supposed to be like my peak race. I was so excited. It was a 50K. I was like, all right, I'm going to put in all this mileage training for this 50K in Georgia. It's going to be awesome. And so I just increased my college mileage by like 20 or 25 miles a week, started running 110-mile weeks, and then actually got a little excited. So I signed up for another race before that one in Noonan, still in Georgia, but in Augusta, where I went to college. And I ran a 50K, drank maybe one bottle of water and took in one gel at mile 10. And I just started running. I was running like 6:30 pace for like the first 25 miles, then just hit a wall of cramps and stuff and still finished pretty strong. But it just left this like sour taste in my mouth. Like, what if I drink more water and maybe ate another gel at mile 25? And so went into my second 50K like a month later and drank more water, didn't cramp, finished and did good as well. And I was like, wow, those are really cool races. And that was exciting. Like maybe I should like do like 100K or something. And I called my friend who just knows more about trail running. And he was like, okay, you ran pretty fast. Like I think I was around like 350 for both of those 50Ks. Not that they were mountainous by any means, but fast enough where I was like, maybe I could be in a competitive race. And so I called my friend and he said like, yeah, the issue is like no one really cares that you ran that. Like no one knows. Like you really should try and like get into a like bigger race. So he recommended the Bandera 100K. And I was like, that sounds awesome. Like, I didn't know that it was even a golden ticket race in the past. I just heard that it was historically competitive. And so I signed up that night, was wicked excited for it. And then just laid down like another 2 months of 100 to 120 mile weeks, not doing any like trail specific work. I mean, like I ran trails, but I didn't understand the concept of training downhills or anything like that. It was just mileage and speed work. I just trained like a marathoner pretty much leading up to it, but lots of miles. So showed up to Bandera without a care in the world. Just so excited to, even those mountains in Bandera were like the coolest thing ever to me. And so
Francesco would say, quote unquote, mountains.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. That was a funny conversation.
I want to hear you talk about that a little bit more because you obviously made a big splash there, but I'd love for you to expand a little bit more on this particular moment in your life and this thrill and joy of learning, because it's reminiscent of the way that I felt when I discovered the sport when I was 22 years old also. And I was just listening to a podcast actually about how special that feeling is of like learning new things and having a big beginner's mind. And especially when it's like a deep intuition that you're following, it tends to lead you in the right direction. And I don't know, I think the listeners would love to just have you expand on that a little bit of just like, where are you right now in your life and with your athletic career? Because it feels like you obviously have this infectious energy towards it. And it feels like it's, you know, you're only 25 years old, but it's a special moment in time for you.
Yeah, no, that's a brilliant question, because so I had just graduated my undergrad, and I got a degree in kinesiology. Didn't really know what I was going to do with it. I was actually thinking that I would be a coach, collegiate coach was my plan. And so actually, as soon as I graduated, I had applied for a coaching job at a smaller school in Georgia, and didn't get it. And then I was working at Fleet Feet all summer, but I think it was kind of a low time mentally for me, because I was not really sure what everything looked like. I just come off the high of being a collegiate athlete. And so running for me, like I said, I just found so much value in it. It was something that I could just absolutely control every day and look forward to, in the midst of a scary part of life where not a whole lot makes sense, but everybody's kind of pushing you to make big steps in life. And I just wasn't quite there is what it felt like. So running for me was huge in the moment. I mean, I ate it up, and running these high miles, I found so much value in it. And I started doing little like weekly updates on Instagram, because that was what was really cool for me for those 8 months was getting to run and train at a high level and surprise myself and how well my body adapted to the training. So for me, running was just so important, and it still is. And I'm happy that now, like, it's become more of just a lifestyle, compared to what it was then, because there was so much fear back then. And, now it's just like I love trail running, and I can see myself doing it for a very long time. So of course, there's always still fear in every area of life, but in that moment, it was really scary and just such a dynamic area of life, and running was just my outlet, and I just loved it, and I found so much value in it.
So coming back to Bandera 2024, it wasn't a golden ticket race, so maybe a little bit quieter on the media front leading in, but your performance made a big splash. It was your 100K debut, and I remember it just sort of ricocheting around the trail running internet because you went under Jim Walmsley's course record, though I think it was on a slightly different course. It was a historically fast time, like a ridiculously fast time. Reflect on that day, because you just said you went in having not really trained like a trail runner. You were training like a marathoner. It's your first 100K. You swung for the fences. You didn't really have competition, so you didn't need to run as fast as you did. Now with some perspective, especially seeing the success you had last weekend, just reflect on that day and, what are some of the core memories from it?
Yeah. I mean, that day, still like one of the best days of my life. It was just absolutely amazing. And I remember talking to people before the race, some of my friends that knew trail running a little bit better. We were talking about the race, and I just asked, like, what's the course record? Like, just curious. I had those 250Ks I ran the year before, or a couple months before I ran the course record. So I was like, maybe I can just keep a hot streak, we'll see what's going to happen. And they were like, oh, well, Jim Walmsley has it. And that was one of the few names that I did know in the trail world. So I was like, okay. I looked up what pace I'd be, and it was like 7:28 pace. And, having only ran like flat 50Ks, I was like 7:28 pace. Like, that sounds pretty doable. Like I can run 7:28s. And, so I took off, and to my surprise, like as soon as we hit the first uphill, like I ended up kind of being alone, and I was just like, oh, this is actually crazy. And then I just started clicking off miles, and I was just so excited. And still had like a terrible plan for hydration nutrition. I still was drinking like a 15-ounce bottle every like 10 miles and taking a gel every like hour or so. So very low carb, low everything, but I was having so much fun. That was what the entire day was built on. And that race is so much fun. And like every aid station is just so like excited to be there. And, I just remember just clicking through some times, and then I came through the halfway point, and I was told that I was on course record pace. And I actually, coming through halfway point, I felt so good that they told me I was on course record pace. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, I wish this was 100-miler. I was like, I just feel like I could run all day. Wow. And so I sped up, and hit a few hills just too hard and then paid for it about 15 miles later, and just like started to hit a wall at around mile 45, had some like leg cramps and stuff. And then I had some like salt tablets and just started eating them like candy, and ended up working somehow, and the cramps went away, and I finished strong. And it was just so cool because the entire race was starting to rally around the performance, that it's a 2-lap course, and like everything's pretty accessible. So people knew what was going on. And, at the second lap, every aid station like knew my name, and they were all cheering, and they were chauffeuring my parents around like kings and queens on a 4-wheeler to get them to the aid stations. And so it was just magical. I mean, it's something that like I said, from the past 8 months of not knowing what was going on, like that just felt so right in the moment. And it felt so inviting. And I think I put on my Instagram post after some song that just was titled "This Is Where I Belong" by Bryan Adams in it, because I was just so excited. I mean, it felt like I was finally in the right place. And I mean, my quads were so destroyed, but I actually fell over in the airport after the race because there was like this 2% decline, and I stepped on it, and my quad's gonna handle me, and I just fell over. But
what a special feeling, man.
Yeah. And there's so many funny stories like during the race. Like I think I just had the perfect mindset going into it, because like I had read a few like trail running books, and they always talk about like quads giving out. And so I remember like being at mile 20, like early in the race, and I just felt my quads were like really heavy and starting to get sore. And I was so excited about it, because I remember thinking, oh my goodness, I'm an ultra marathon runner. Like my quads are hurting. This is amazing. And I was just so excited about the simple things.
Certified,
just to be a trail runner. Yeah. But I think that's why the race went so well, is just because I was just so ecstatic to be out there.
Yeah. And again, I remember just the internet exploded. Like, who is this Hans Troyer guy? And then everybody's mind went to Black Canyon's like 3 weeks from now. Take us into those intervening weeks, because you were a last minute entry at Black Canyon. So maybe just share with the audience, what was the series of events that led you from the finish line of Bandera to the start line of Black Canyon 2024?
Yeah, absolutely. And when I finished Bandera, the next day I had a friend reach out to me that he had reached out to Jamil, and was like, you could get in Black Canyon if you want. And, 24 hours after the race, I was still so destroyed. I was like, I don't know, like, give me like a couple days to think about it. And ended up only being about 24 hours later. And I started to be able to walk again. And I was like, well, I mean, like, yeah, of course I want to go race Black Canyon. And I was starting to learn more about like what golden tickets were and stuff. And so I was told that this could be a big opportunity for me, and like a lot of really fast people are going to be there. And so I started running again like Tuesday or Wednesday after Bandera, which I probably should have waited a little bit longer because I was still wrecked, but started training again. I learned who Hayden Hawks was. I didn't know. And funny enough, like I still bring like the college energy. I still feel like I bring some college energy to the trails. Yeah. So I was told they're like, Hayden Hawks is the favorite. And so I was like, okay, well, like I'll start keeping an eye on him. And I followed him on Instagram, and I saw he posted some video of him running, like playing some song in the background. So me and my friend immediately went out to the trails and got a video of me running and played the same song. And I put it on my story, just kind of poking fun and trying to create a little bit of a rivalry going into it, even though I didn't really know who he was yet. I learned during the race pretty well, but,
I love it. So see, this is the mix of you being a people person and a competitor.
Exactly. See, I'll poke fun and like, I like good competition, but the second I saw him, I was just like, Hayden, it's an honor. So nice to meet you,
I love that.
But I do like, and then there's a funny story. This is going back before Bandera. But for my Bandera shakeout run the day before, this is just another like smack talk kind of funny thing. I did like a section of the course. And so on Strava with the segment records, I was like third all time on one, and Jim Walmsley was fifth. And so, and so on my pre-race, I wrote on there, get wrecked Jim. And then as soon as I finished the race and realized at the time, I thought I had broke the course record. I didn't find out like 2 days later that I hadn't, but I was like, oh my goodness, I need to delete that on Strava. And so I went back and deleted it because I was like, this is bad. I look like a jerk. But a few people saw it and have let me know since then that they thought it was kind of funny, but yeah. But I wouldn't smack talk Jim now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, going back to Black Canyon 2024, when you were this last minute entry and this really exciting storyline going in, I was at the Deep Canyon Ranch Aid Station, which is roughly 50K into the course. And you came in running shoulder to shoulder with Hayden and Hoopeter, who ended up finishing 1-2 last year. Bring us into that, because like, what I'd love to know, obviously you've said you're a competitor, but is there any part of you that feels intimidated in those situations? Because Black Canyon is almost as big as a stage as you get here in North America. You know, certainly one of the most storied and competitive races each and every year. Hayden is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Hoopeter was also a little bit of an unknown going into the race, but you being 24 years old at the time, having just finished your first 100K, I don't know. To me, it feels like an act of bravery to really stick your nose in it in the way that you do. And maybe it says something about the person you are.
Yeah. I mean, I think that after Bandera, the way that race did blow up, I mean, I'll even admit now, looking back on it over a year later, it's like I had a pretty big head for 4 weeks leading into Black Canyon. And since it was a Walmsley record that I was close to, I fully believed going into Black Canyon that I was one of the best trail runners in the world, which backfired on me a little bit, just from lack of knowledge and stuff. So in that race in particular, I just felt unstoppable, just coming off Bandera, and how the media portrayed me, like going into it. I thought I was the stuff. So I can admit that now.
That's interesting though. I mean, that's, I think, really important for you too. You know, and I think, for example, I was just thinking about Seth Ruling today, who won Black Canyon this year, broke the course record, and then won Canyon's 50K. He's going to be a Western States too. And, you know, you can go in with a lot of confidence, and that's beneficial. But also, whenever you start to feel that you figured something out, the universe will show you ways in which you haven't. And there's certainly examples of this from my racing career too, where I'd have 2 or 3 great ones in a row and feel like I had just solved the mystery of the sport and I would never lose a race again. And then immediately you have, you know, a fantastic explosion. So I don't know. I think it is important to like have those types of experiences. And now in retrospect, you can admit that you had a big head and that you went in with maybe undeserved swagger and confidence.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it didn't help. Like, as cool as Bandera was last year, it's like, reality is the race went really well, and I didn't really learn anything from it regarding hydration, nutrition. Yeah. And so if I would have ran 9 hours that day and learned that I needed to change hydration, nutrition, like Black Canyon could have been different. A lot of things could have played different. So I'm thankful for the learning experiences that came from Black Canyon more than I am thankful from the success at Bandera. Because, I mean, that's what the sport is. It's just solving the puzzle. Totally. And with the great success, you don't learn as much. So I've learned that I'm going to learn something every single race. And that excites me, is that I'm just going to keep trying to solve the puzzle. But yeah, Black Canyon was the biggest learning experience I've had thus far.
And you were brought down to earth in a really dramatic way. Share that with the audience, because as I recall, you ended up in the hospital.
Yeah. I brought my same hydration nutrition plan from Bandera, which really didn't work.
Which was not a hydration.
It didn't work. Yeah, exactly. I just thought it worked. But I made it even worse for Black Canyon, because there's some longer gaps between crude aid stations. So I think I started with 2 14-ounce handhelds in my hand, and I had plans to only drink about 4 more of those throughout the race. I was taking in maybe 25 grams of carbs an hour. Long story short, just not taking care of myself at all. And I just, in the moment, I just thought that's what trail running was just like tearing your body to shreds. I read David Goggins' book the year before, and that's messed me up. But So I thought that was the case. And I also didn't really know just how much damage you could do to your body during these races. Like I always just assumed that, you know, if the going got too tough that my body would just make me stop. Which in Black Canyon, I learned that I do have a superpower, and it's that I can run myself to death. So I just ran way too hard with way too little water and nutrition and stuff. I mean, looking back on it, like I'm sure a better plan would have changed the day a lot. But around mile 40 in the race, I was starting to fall apart really, really bad. Was already starting to get leg cramps, was getting kind of delusional in the head. Just everything that could go wrong was just starting to go wrong. But I was still in the mindset of like, I can push harder than anybody. And so I refused to quit and just walked it in as hard as I could for the entire race. Did not pee at all during the race at all. And I didn't even realize that was happening. And then after the race, probably 4 hours after the race, we were back at the B&B and I felt so terrible. And I finally told my crew, I was like, yeah, I haven't peed since this morning, like before the race. And, my mom was there and she's a nurse practitioner. So she immediately was just like, oh my goodness, this is really bad. And, I ended up getting rhabdomyolysis, pretty bad case. So I got back to Noonan, I got back to Georgia, and then 2 days later, like nothing was getting better. I was peeing maybe every like 6 hours, but I was drinking so much fluid. And then, my little brother, he's a paramedic. My entire family's medical field, by the way, except for me. But my little brother's paramedic. And so he finally was just like, have you weighed yourself recently? And I was like, no. I said, and I'd only eaten maybe 4 French fries in the past 3 days. So I was so nauseous.
Yeah.
And so I weighed myself and I had gained like 15 pounds.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no, that's not good. So my mom was like, you need to go to the hospital. Went to the hospital and ended up being there for nearly 2 weeks. I had gained like 40 pounds of water weight, which was really intense because I'm a smaller guy. I only weigh like 130.
Wow.
So being close to 170 pounds in the hospital.
I mean, that's what I weigh, dude. I'm 6'3".
Yeah, it was brutal. And my blood pressure was so high from all the water. And then like simple things you don't really think about is like your body has to store all that fluid somewhere. So it starts storing them in random tissues and stuff. And it turns out that my pleural cavity around my lungs is like super susceptible to holding water. So in the hospital every like 24 hours, I would just have like insane trouble breathing. So I was on like high oxygen half the time. And it was a horrific experience, which was, I mean, it's about as big as learning experience as it can get. But it was really, really bad. But,
I mean, talk about a contrast of race experiences, smashing Bandera out of the park in your first try, and then, you know, taking the same approach to Black Canyon, racing fearlessly, and then ending up in the hospital for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was what an introduction to long course trail running.
Exactly. Yeah, the jokes after Black Canyon were like, now I've experienced 2 years of trail running in 1 month.
Yeah,
it was just such intense things, both sides.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there's a lot of learning. So tell us about building back, and specifically what I'd love to hear after sort of going through your entire YouTube channel and watching it. I love it, by the way. Keep doing that.
Thank you. I love making videos. Good. They're so fun.
Yeah. Because, you know, it seems to me, just as an outside observer, that it took you a bit to build back, and like your next opportunity at Grindstone was a DNF. And I think in that video, you say that you had just started working with David Roche like a little bit beforehand. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I don't know. You could sort of fill out that story of like, you know, coming out of the hospital, you could have the instinct of like, man, I don't want to do this again. Like, you know, but you took the opposite approach and you engaged professional training help with one of the most popular coaches in the sport, and, you know, took another swing at it. And even though that one didn't land, you know, at least you're setting a course towards continuing on in the sport.
Yeah. Yeah. I knew that, I mean, having experienced the high at Bandera, I knew that, like I said, this is where I belong, is in the trail scene. So I never had like unless I just medically could not continue, like I was planning on I was going to keep trying no matter what. And so coming out of the hospital, like my first run back was like a 15-minute walk jog, and I had to keep my heart rate below like 160 because my blood pressure was still high. And I just hopped back on the saddle and started doing a bunch of double runs and just a really long build. And this is before David and I partnered up, but I think I just built for like 3 months straight, just adding on mileage every like 3 weeks. And then before you know it, in July, I was back a little over 100 and hydrating like crazy because I was so terrified. Still am so terrified to get dehydrated. So every run was completely tons of water, electrolytes, stuff like that, just to make sure I was safe, which ultimately I think is a big secret, which more people need to be doing, is just hydrating before, during, and after everything, because you can keep your body operating like that, then you're good to go. But so that was huge for me. And then, the David Roach's story is kind of funny as well. Cause like I said, I didn't know a lot of people in the sport. So he was one of them. Unfortunately, I didn't know who he was. And, we talked a little bit after Black Canyon, and I was just like, yeah, this guy's really nice. But like, you know, I didn't know who he was. And then I started listening to his podcast after the hospital experience. And so I listened to it like all summer, and I was like, this guy really knows what he's talking about. Yeah. Like this is crazy. And so I reached back out to him after all the months, since we had first talked, and was just like, hey, we had talked about this months ago, but like if your offer still stands, like I think this would be a great opportunity. And he was all hands on deck. He's ready to go. So we partnered up about 5 weeks before Grindstone. And the Grindstone was an interesting one. So I signed up for Grindstone like a month out of the hospital. It was supposed to be like my, motivation was I got a big race on the calendar. But I think a mix between like recovering from Rhabdo and then also like having such high expectations for myself in the sport. Yeah. I just psyched myself out going into Grindstone, and
dude, you can feel that in the YouTube. Plan. You can feel it in your YouTube, especially like now that I've watched, the ones from Way Too Cool and Canyons and stuff. If you go back and watch that one, you can sense the fact that you're not quite back yet, or you're not feeling it, or maybe there's a little bit of underlying fear based on that Rhabdo experience.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was a nervous wreck going in, like not only just for like health issues, but just for, like I said, the expectations of running well at previous races. It was kind of a course record or bust mentality, which I still got that just a little bit, but it was pretty bad going to Grindstone because I took off, and within the first like 20 or 30 miles, like I was right on course record pace, which is silly because it wasn't a golden ticket year or anything. I thought the Grindstone was going to be a golden ticket race. That's why I signed up for it originally. And then it wasn't. And I was like, oh, well, I'll just keep doing it anyway. But I just ran way too hard. Still didn't know how to run hills very well, and just sprinted up some early ones. Yeah. And it just tore me up. And then by mile 45, I was like dizzy, just a wreck on the trails. And so just walked it in and took the DNF. I'm now a DNF over death type of person instead of the other way around, which most people should be, because you can tear yourself up out there.
We all have that learning experience eventually. Yeah. Okay. So tell me a little bit about how things have changed. I mean, obviously you and David have been working together now for what it's been like 6 months or something like that, maybe a little bit more. And looking at your Strava, man, like you're just stacking bricks and just super consistent week over week, good solid volume, lots of intensity. But it seems like some of that classic David Roche stuff has bled in. Like you're always talking about the Z2 thing, and you do the uphill treadmill work. So maybe just share a couple of the things that David's brought into your training to help you become a better, specifically trail runner.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we've worked so well together because, I mean, I think he also treats all of his athletes like respectively to what they're good at and whatnot. So my initial concerns was that I was going to like lower mileage or whatever. And I like high mileage. But luckily he gives me optional doubles every week, and I just do all of them. So I just like the extra running. But I think my like hard work and overall just enjoyment for running, and then his like specificity to sport has been huge because he started adding things like uphill treadmill, which I didn't really know existed into my training. And then, vert days with downhill leading into a race where you can actually prepare your quads for a race, which I didn't really know existed. And then hydration, nutrition stuff he started teaching me about. And so all that combined with, like Z2 training, I didn't know that existed either. So just the specificity of like trail running and his knowledge combined with like my work ethic, it's just been phenomenal. And I enjoy it. And then he taught me, high carb and stuff, and then just overall fueling. So I think that some of the reasons I'm able to do like higher mileage and intensity and stuff is just fueling everything, which he taught me. So it's been great. And I'm really thankful for him teaching me all this stuff.
I noticed your crew had hoodies on at Canyons that said "Bet on Hans," which was a David Roche quote.
My parents love making T-shirts and stuff. Like if anything gets said, you can guess that they're gonna make a T-shirt about it. But yeah, they have it says Young and Pit Crew on the front. Yeah, which I think is pretty clever. But yeah, they love making T-shirts.
I got to get that Troyer merch, dude. You got to make that available via your YouTube channel. So
I should. That'd be cool.
All right, let's talk about 2025. But before we get to Canyons, you started your season at Way Too Cool after a bit of a false start at Black Canyon. You were going to get your redemption there in the desert of Arizona, but got sick leading into it. That led you, I guess, to Way Too Cool, where you won. Mm-hmm. You said in your vlog about Way Too Cool that, you were proud to win, but you felt like you made a bunch of mistakes. It wasn't necessarily your best day. So maybe just share a bit of the context, the early months, just so we have some context leading into our conversation about canyons.
Yeah. So I raced Bandera 50K this year. So that was my like tune up for Black Canyon. And that one actually went really well. And so I was really confident and excited going into Black Canyon. And, I had like figured out the nerves. I had a great hydration nutrition plan. Like everything just seemed to be lining up perfectly. Travel was smooth, and getting there, I felt good. Did a shakeout run Thursday, felt great. And then on Friday, I woke up and I was like, I was coughing a little bit. And I was like, this is kind of weird. And I did a shakeout run again. And by the end of it, I was like, oh, this is bad. Like I'm starting to feel really sick. So throughout the day, Friday, I tried everything I could, but ultimately, had like a high fever Friday night. I think I threw up once and like just not good. I ended up getting the flu. So had to drop out the morning of Black Canyon, which was unfortunate and kind of heartbreaking because that race had haunted me a little bit after last year and what happened there. So I just been thinking about it for a year. So it was heartbreaking mentally to not be able to get redemption there. And of course I wanted the golden ticket really bad. So I knew that left it down to one opportunity at Canyons. And it was tough, but I took, 3 or 4 days off with sickness, and then just same thing. I like to train. So I hopped right back on it. Just started doing everything I could. David recommended I sign up for Way Too Cool because I didn't want to go like no racing from Bandera all the way to Canyons. So signed up for Way Too Cool. Went into it. Just silly things that I should have been practicing with. Like I had got a new belt like 2 weeks before that race, and it was a little bit bigger than the one I had. So I barely tested it. And then as soon as the gun fires at Way Too Cool, I start running and just notice it's like flopping around like crazy. And I was like, oh my goodness, like I should have prepared for that, but I didn't. So I like carried my bottle the entire time at Way Too Cool because I couldn't stand it flopping around in front of me. Yeah. So that was silly. And then the funny story before Way Too Cool is that I dropped my bottles and belts in the porta potty, which was terrible. But that probably took a little bit of the nerves off. I don't know. But that was like 20 minutes before the race, and I was panicked, and I just had to reach in and grab everything. So that was terrible. And then overall,
so horrible.
It was terrible.
People can see it in the Way Too Cool vlog. We'll make sure to link to the YouTube channel. Yeah, but I was panicked from that, and then overall like execution during the race, like it went out fast, and I feel like I burnt myself out within the first 20 miles just because it was going out quick, and then the final 10, I just didn't really feel like up to par with what I felt like I should have, and the climbs were kind of getting me. So it was just from like a year perspective, and then just like a execution perspective, like it wasn't what I would have wanted. And so it wasn't exactly a confidence builder, but
like I was saying about Bandera versus Black Canyon last year, it was a learning experience, which I needed. So I started training for canyons and doing like full gear practice weekends where I was wearing all the mandatory gear, which still ended up not working because we got the cold weather mandatory gear like 2 days before the race. So, but yeah, I was more like focused for canyons. I just started like just doing every little thing that I could have imagined going wrong instead of just kind of winging it on race day. I started to try to figure it all out on a more specific level. And that leads us to canyons. But yeah.
All right. So in the intervening weeks, I watched your vlogs. You put up, I think, 2 training videos leading into canyons. And in the second one, I think it is, you say that you felt like the best trail runner that you'd ever been, clearly confident. You'd been stacking a bunch of great training. So then I guess, bring us to canyons, like where the mentality was at, because that ended up being the most competitive canyons ever. Bunch of dudes, a couple dozen guys probably that would be hoping for those golden tickets. Were you feeling confident going in?
I was really nervous, but I was feeling really confident. I mean, I was one of like the first to sign up for it, and I was checking the elite field every week, and it just seemed to change so much. And so every week I would check it and my heart would drop because another huge name entered the race. And I was like, oh my goodness, it just got more and more competitive. But I got more and more excited because of that. Because my initial entry into trail running was to find out how good I could be. And so I knew that by surrounding myself with all these insanely fast people, that it was going to bring out the best in me. And that gave me a lot of confidence. And then, especially with all the consistent training that I had leading up to it and the practice with gear and just the people around me, I felt confident. I hadn't, like, grindstone was the peak of nerves, I feel like, for me. And because of that, I knew that I had to like figure stuff out mentally. And so I've just done a lot of like mental practice leading into it and just telling myself that, you know, I'm fit, I'm supposed to be here. And it's just going to be about execution on the day.
Let's get it. Let's get it.
Exactly.
Yeah, let's get it. You know, it's funny. I'd love for you to build on this a little bit more, because it's something that I also recognized in one of those training videos where you talk about looking at other athletes in the field, like you're just mentioning, seeing names pop up on the elite start list. And I think this is becoming more and more something that professional athletes have to develop a philosophy around, about like how much information to absorb about what the competition is doing. Because in this day and age, there's just such a ridiculous abundance of information. And for you could go deep on the Strava profiles of any number of the dozens of guys that you would be competing against at canyons. Have you talked about David with that, or do you have a personal sort of way of dealing with this information overload in a way that helps you get to a start line feeling confident? Because you could look at it in one of two ways, like either totally go digital detox, don't look at anybody, or, you know, you go deep down the rabbit hole and it could maybe mess with your confidence. Is there anything there that would be interesting?
Yeah. I mean, I think David's mentioned it before, where he always says pressure is privilege. And I think that I was trying to like just think about that a lot going into the race, that this pressure is a good thing. It means that this is important to me and it's important to those around me. And then on top of that, like, this is something I was telling myself during the race, especially, but a little bit before the race, where it's just like, I mean, we're all trying to do the same things, and we're all hiding something to an extent, like during the race, especially, where it's like, someone's uncomfortable about something, and it's just, we're all in the same like playing field. And so I just accepted that I was going to feel the pressure, and that,
but like, are you looking at other guys? Are you looking at other guys' Stravas and being like, oh, how much volume did they do? Like, check out that workout. Yeah.
Yeah. I told myself that I shouldn't do that. And I also like told myself like not to listen to the previews or anything, but I looked at everybody's Strava and I listened to every preview. So I think that in a way, like before like the pressure gets to me, I think the excitement helps me. And I think that like by just really putting myself into the race fully, that I just get more excited for it, because I mean, like I'm saying this whole time, I love running. And so running fast is even more fun than running slow. So I think that by looking at everybody's Strava and listening to the previews and stuff, it just like makes me so excited for the race, and excitement is better than everything else for me. So that's what I started to discover, like, especially a week out from the race when the previews and stuff started showing up, was like, I don't want to just sit here and be nervous. I'd rather like sit here and be excited. So I started listening. And then of course I was, the underdog, which is neat after I listened to the previews. So that like took a little bit of nerves off and also just made me like excited just to show people what I could do. So I looked at everything though. I can't avoid it. It's just too exciting. I'm a fan of the sport too.
Yeah. I picked you 5th, I think, in my fantasy ballot, and I mean, I included you, but clearly wasn't fully up to snuff on the young and fit game. But it's funny because I think it was Keely Henninger who said after the race, I was chatting with her, that she didn't even look like at who was on the start list until she was flying down the day before. And she got a golden ticket also. So I don't know. I just think this is going to be more and more a thing that pro athletes have to kind of develop a strategy around, of like, how much information do you absorb about your competition, both like the start lists themselves, but also the training stats, because most people are on Strava. Most people are sharing most of what they do. I think more and more now people are not uploading necessarily every key session, but I don't know, like most, I don't know. I still think most people are, and it can be, I don't know, emotionally, psychologically draining to stay on top of all that stuff. So anyway, fun to talk about. So let's talk about the race itself. I saw you guys come into Michigan Bluff, which is mile 23 or so. You were sitting in the pack with Jupiter and Hannes. I think you guys were 3rd through 5th, but basically together through that aid station behind the leader, Jackson Cole and Francesco Puppi at that time. And one of the takeaways that Tim Tollefson and I had as we were just out and about on the course is that it seemed like the field strung out quickly. So maybe you could just share a little bit about the dynamic in the men's field in the early miles of the race, and to what extent it fit sort of what you were expecting or didn't. Because like for us, like I said, we were expecting to be like a big pack, you guys coming in, and it was already really spread out.
Yeah. I mean, I think we went out pretty quick. Like even our first 2 miles were in like the 540s, I think. And then I was a little surprised myself that it did get strung out pretty quick, because the pace was like honest. But for the first like big climb, we just all packed right back up together, which I was surprised about. And then there really wasn't like a whole lot of movement going on. It just felt like we were all just running single track, single file. And then the climb, like the out and back, on the climb back up, I think that's when people started to like just fall back a little bit, or maybe it was the downhill leading into it. That whole first part of the race is kind of blurry to me. I was just like so adrenaline filled that I was just running. But then we hit the top of that hill on the out and back, and it was a group of like 5 of us, except for, it was Jackson Cole. That's his name. Yeah. He was out front. But I think a lot of people were keying off Francesco, and to my surprise, like he also didn't take it like until we started to hit the top of that hill. He was kind of lagging back in like 7th, 8th. I think I was ahead of him for some of the ups, some of the downs, and then he kind of made a big move down that hill. Cause he's a great downhill runner. He's really fast. So he started to drop some people. But I think everybody was kind of keen off him. So then that's when it started to get strung out, was when he started to go. And I was one of the ones that kind of went with him. But then we got to the top of the hill. I don't know the names of all the places, so sorry if I'm being confusing. But when we got to the top of the hill, I think it's like Deadwood aid station. Yeah, Deadwood. Francesco he just started running really fast down this hill, and I remember thinking that he was probably just going to catch Jackson. But turns out that was like the big move of the race was right there, which was really cool. And it just shows how fast he is. But then Jupiter and Anthony and I and Hannes was starting to catch up with us. We all kind of worked together for the next climb until we got to Michigan Bluff. But the early miles, like they felt fast, but like pretty doable. And I think that the terrain got some people, because it was pretty slippery out there. And then like when it was dark, it was dark. I had some headlamp issues, so I was kind of struggling in that first little bit, but I think the terrain got some people. got in some people's heads more than anything. And then it was so cold at the top of the mountains, but then like perfectly fine at the bottom of the mountains, which is also something I've never experienced. So that was pretty neat. But through that, I think it was just a hectic start. And I think that threw a lot of people off early. But then we got to Michigan Bluff. It felt like a kind of a normal race after that.
Yeah. So eventually you go through Forest Hill and then you sort of find yourself alone in second place. Take us into your self-talk, because obviously the ticket was the main goal of being there. You knew you were in the mix. You knew you were where you needed to be, but you knew there was a couple dozen studs chasing you from behind. Mm-hmm. So, and of course, you're probably still battling a few of those demons from 2024 and what happened at Black Canyon. So maybe just bring us into your self-talk and your headspace in that second half of the race.
For sure. Yeah. Going into Forest Hill, there was like a pretty big climb, and I was running uphills really well. And I think I gained a lot of confidence because Hannes had caught me not long after Michigan Bluff. But on the uphills, like I was just seemingly getting away from him, which was a huge confidence builder because I don't know a ton about him, but I'm assuming he's pretty good at hills. So, so that was a big confidence builder. And then also being in like third place, like, of course I wanted to like go out there and try to win the race, but I was really concerned about a golden ticket. And so knowing that Francesco like probably wasn't going to accept it mixed with some other things, I was really confident in my position and I felt pretty solid. So then going into Forest Hill, everything kind of switched where all of a sudden it went from like, I'm doing good, playing it safe, feeling confident to like, I could win this thing if I get after it. And, my plan, I was just executing everything so well, thus far. And like my hydration nutrition was amazing. My stomach wasn't hurting, legs felt fine. And so, I kind of switched over from like damage control early to like, okay, let's race now, and, sped up a pretty good bit. Cause I heard that Francesco was 3 minutes ahead of me at Forest Hill. And I was like, that's, achievable. Like I can get back up there. And so the next section I ran pretty hard, caught Jackson, passed him. And then I was really thinking like, okay, it's race time now. Like I'm pretty confident where I'm going to be. Like, even if I fade back a little bit, like I'll still be in golden ticket position. Like this is going well. This is going really well. And then I got to the next aid station and immediately was just like, how far is Francesco? Like, and someone told me 6 minutes. And I was like, oh, what? 6 minutes? Like he was just 3 minutes and I just ran like a good section. And so I felt like I was running pretty quick. So it's not like I like lost any confidence on like getting a golden ticket or anything, but I was just really impressed with Francesco at that section. And so after that, I almost went, like I was still making a push for it. Like I was squeezing. I wouldn't say I was like really pushing the pace. Because in the back of my head, I was still telling myself like a golden ticket's pretty good. That's not a bad day at all. But it wasn't until driver's flat when I then heard that he was like 9 minutes ahead of me, where I was like, okay, he's still putting some distance between us. And at that point, I think that Hannes was like 5 minutes behind me.
Yep.
So I was feeling comfortably tired. And I decided like, I'm probably not going to make up another 10 minutes in, a half marathon against Francesco. So I kind of went into just damage control mode again and just ran quick, but not trying to burn myself out.
Yeah.
And, there was a lot of emotions in that final 10 miles.
Dude, I want you to talk about that because you arrived back in Auburn, right in the center of town, got second place, secured the golden ticket, ran a ridiculously fast time. And it was an emotional moment. And you had, your family there with you as you received this amazing golden ticket, which you've been chasing. Even though it's early in your career, it feels like this has been something you've really been striving towards. So I'd love for you in whatever way you can, just describe the emotions of that moment, because it was clear to those of us who were there watching that it was really powerful.
Yeah. I mean, it was so cool just because, especially like I got the finish line. I mean, my wife Grace was there. My parents were there. Just a lot of friends were there. And like, just, they all believed in me so much over this past year and a half. And like, they tell me that every day how much they believe in me, how proud they are. And so I think it all hit me when I realized like I gave them something to believe in. When I performed that way. And it was just so surreal. And like the whole, past year had like flashed before my eyes where in the hospital, like in my lowest moments, they were there. And then in the highest moment, getting that golden ticket at the finish line, they were there. And just all that hard work and everything that I put in. And I know like everybody out there puts in hard work. So I'm not saying that I work harder than anybody else. But I know that I work hard, and I sacrifice a lot to work this hard. So just having it all pay off and to give my friends and family something to believe in was just a feeling that I'll never forget. So it was amazing.
I love it. So now I'm remembering that the tracker was on the fritz most of the day, and your update kind of disappeared from driver's flat, or maybe a little bit afterwards. Have you had a chance, or maybe you could share a little bit about the conversations with your family afterwards? Because I'm sure it induced a lot of fear. In fact, I recall some comments on our Instagram posts about like Hans Troyer nearly gave me a heart attack, because he disappeared off the face of the earth. But so, I mean, especially recollecting what happened at Black Canyon, the 2 weeks in the hospital. I mean, if I was your mom or dad, I would probably be terrified in that moment without seeing those updates. And here you come in with the golden ticket, complete euphoria. It must have been a wild, emotional ride for them too. Was there any fun conversations about that afterwards? Just the whole tracker phenomenon?
For sure. I mean, and even post race, I've had like 100+ people be like, "Oh my goodness, the tracker!" And I'm like, "I know the tracker. I know it wasn't working." But luckily for my crew, they had someone like let them know from the non-crew day stations that they like saw me and I looked good, so they didn't have the same panic attack that a lot of other people had. But I don't blame people for having a panic attack. I Black Canyon and then Grindstone, like I get it. I mean, it makes sense. But yeah, I mean, the emotions that like my wife and my mom were both crying at the finish line, and like it was so cool. But
dude, we were all crying at the finish line. It was amazing. It was so good. So your coach David commented on your Instagram post afterwards, says, "Young and fit forever," like 1,000,000 exclamation points. "I'm so impressed by you, your work ethic, your kindness, your spirit, and how you share that with the world via running. Always, always bet on Hans. He's got that dog," So it's pretty fun that you guys will be able to line up on the Western States start line together.
Absolutely. We've been talking about it for months, so I'm excited.
All right. Well, let's finish by just talking about that. Would love to hear about conversations you've had with David, but also I think it was you who posted something. I think it was on that Instagram post where you said it's time to race the legends in June.
Yep.
So what are the goals?
I mean, I'm going to shoot for the moon when I'm there. I mean, I'm not going to be dumb about it, which I've historically done at some races. But like I want to compete with the best. So I'm not just going to set my goals low. I mean, I think that top 10 a year like this would obviously be absolutely incredible. But like, if it's my day, I mean, we'll see what's possible, but I'm young and this will be my first 100-miler. And so there's a lot of unknowns going into it, but I'd like to think that I can rise to the occasion and run a good race. What that means, to be determined. I'm definitely not going to go out there and say that I'll be leading through 60 miles or something. I'm not going to say that, but my body's recovering great from this race, and talking with David and talking with just everybody around me. It's like, I think that I could run a good race. But yeah.
Come on, be more specific. I think I was actually 25 when I did my first Western States also. But,
really?
I think this is what's interesting is, you're 25 years old. You could look at this as an opportunity to just build experience racing against the top guys on the biggest stage, be conservative and then like try and land a top 10, right? And then come back and have another chance. But I have a feeling that's not going to be the strategy. I have more of a feeling that it's going to be like, Black Canyon, where you're shoulder to shoulder with someone like Hayden Hawks, and you got that dog in you, so to speak.
That's what excites me the most, but that's also what scares me the most. Is I know myself, and I know that standing on the starting line with all those guys, like I'm going to be adrenaline through the roof. So I'm not going to be dumb about it, but I mean, who knows what I'll do. I'm a competitor, so it'll be fun. It'll be a show. I'm a showman. So like I said, going into canyons, I like to put on a show. I just hope that it's a good show and not a poor showing show. So
I love that. Yeah, you definitely do have a bit of like a Zach Miller element to you that I think a lot of us have grown to appreciate. And like I said, you have a rabid digital fan section, you know, certainly around canyons, and I'm sure on the Western States live stream, the young and fit hit crew will be boisterous in there. Tell me about how you're thinking about the next, as we're recording this, it's I think 7 weeks until race day. How are you thinking about, I mean, you're only a week removed from your fantastic performance at Canyons. How are you thinking about the next 7 weeks in terms of recovery, training, taper? And tell us about these convos with David. I'm sure people would love to hear it, the coach athlete dynamic on the start line.
Absolutely. I mean, just with David, he's like the most supportive guy I've ever met. And he just constantly hypes me up every day and tells me the coolest things that like, I wish everybody could hear. And so like, he says things like, you know, like, oh, like, I can't wait for you to beat me at Western States. I'm like, dude, come on. Like, it's kind of funny. But, I mean, the next few weeks for training, like this week was a lot of recovery. I took like 4 days, just walking around, and then started running again a few days ago, feeling good. And then the next few weeks is going to look a lot like the weeks leading up to Canyons, except the weekends will be a little bit more verti. Instead of just doing like some verti runs on Saturday, I'll do like Saturday, Sunday doubles with some hills just to make sure I get the quads right. And then just keeping the legs fast. So a lot of the same with a little bit more specificity, some heat training, which I'm excited for. Cause I bought these ice bandanas. I was so excited to use at Canyons and didn't get to use them. So now I get to use them at States. So that's awesome. But yeah, I mean, not a whole lot's going to change training wise. It's going to look a lot of the same. Just like I said, a little bit more specific to the quads, I imagine. Yeah.
Have you already like gotten all your travel figured out, and you know, like when you're going to be coming up, and will you do any more?
Not yet. I assume I want to get out there because before Canyons, I came out on Thursday. Like I want to get out there before that. Maybe go out there for like a little training camp. Definitely
I was
get out there.
Ask. Memorial Day weekend.
We'll see. Yeah. We'll see. I still need to, David and I need to talk about that, just whatever he thinks best. But, I do want to like experience the course a little more. That would be ideal. I just don't know. I haven't got the travel figured out yet, but yeah.
Well, as we talked about in our pre-race coverage at Canyons, there's a great history of people who perform well at Canyons being able to double back and have a great one at Western States. And yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of people rooting for you. And yeah, I think you're not going to be flying under the radar.
Hope not.
It reminds me, before I get to our traditional closing question, I'd love to have you just comment on Francesco's performance at Canyons too, because I mean, he smashed it. And I mean, you ran, I think 13 minutes under Rod Farvard's time from 2024. Francesco was, I think 23 minutes ahead of you. So I don't know if there's any fun conversations that you guys had afterwards, maybe Hannes also, who was just a few minutes back of you. I mean, because you guys really did put on a show. It was really, really impressive. But, you know, it was Francesco's first 100K. I wondered if there's anything you had to say or wanted to share from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to let you know, my phone's at like 7%. So if I just disappear,
yeah, we'll wind down.
I'm so
here
sorry.
In a sec.
But yeah, so Francesco, I mean, first of all, his performance is just, it was incredible. Like, it was not that I've done a ton of super competitive races, but I feel like I ran a really solid race. I mean, there's definitely areas for improvement, as is there's for like every race. But just the fact that he kept putting consistent time on me after every aid station, like I couldn't believe it every time I heard it. And then it was just such a fantastic performance. And then he's such a great guy. Like I was so excited that I got to chat with him for a few minutes after the race. And like, of course, you know, he's humble as can be. He starts asking me all these questions about myself. And I was like, dude, like, I want to hear about you. Like, I don't know a lot about you. But he was so smooth on the downhills because I thought that I was like a pretty solid downhill runner, and just every downhill, he was just flowing straight down them. So I think like mechanically out there on the trail, like he's so fluid with it. And I really wish that he would have taken the ticket because I'd love to see what he could do at States, and I'd love just to race him again. But it was pretty eye opening just to see like how smooth someone can run on technical distance and stuff. Watching him out there, so everybody should be a fan of Francesco. He's a pretty incredible person.
No doubt. Cool. Well, Hans, I'm a big fan, buddy, and I can't wait to see you at Western States. I think you're going to add just a really fun storyline and personality to this year's field, which is going to be the best Western States men's race ever. So you as a 25-year-old, I hope you have an appreciation of the history that you're walking into and just the fact that I hope you enjoy the chance to race against all these incredible athletes at a race that is really life-changing and transformational. I end all these interviews in the same place. My closing question is, who is one person that you admire? Can be inside or outside of sport, living or dead. Why do you admire that person? So
I thought of 3 answers. My first answer is Killian. I feel like it's a pretty obvious answer, but I read his book, Run or Die, when I was just getting out of college. And I think in his early career, before he was making really any money doing this, he tells stories about him just staying in like, I guess it was maybe like an apartment with some friends or something. And like all they did was wake up and train every day. And he just talks about the value that he found in sport and the value he found in endurance training, all this stuff. And I remember reading it and just like relating to it so much and being like, this is so cool that there's someone out there that does this. And then just seeing him and his career and everything, like just inspiring. And I think he's one of the coolest people ever. And, he's my runner answer. And I'm so excited to race him. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited to race him, but that's gonna be awesome. And then my like not super practical answer, it would be, Magnus Carlsen, the chess player. Yeah. He's so cool. And he's so talented.
Are you a chess guy?
Kind of like, I'm like pretty bad at it, but I do enjoy playing it. And when I play it consistently, I feel like my brain is in the best spot. Like my problem solving gets better. So that's why I'm so curious about Magnus, because like his problem solving and every day,
he's like the Killian of chess for our listeners.
Yeah. He's pretty incredible.
Wow,
so
that's interesting.
Yeah. And then finally, I have a fictional answer. But Naruto Uzumaki from Naruto, he's so cool. It's a TV show, if you don't know, but
I don't never heard of it.
I'm sure some people will get it, but Naruto, I watched that a few years ago, and like the show is really good. And Naruto's super, like, he works hard and he's good with people and he cares about everyone around him, and like that's really cool. Although he's a fictional character, so those are my 3 answers. But yeah,
all right. I love it. I'm gonna look him up. Hans Troyer, buddy, thanks for coming on the podcast. Look forward to seeing you in Olympic Valley.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's honestly a pleasure. I'm a huge fan, so thank you.
Thank you, buddy.